everyone, and welcome to Rad Chat, the multi-award winning therapeutic radiographer-led oncology podcast. My name's Jo McNamara and I'm joined by fellow host Nigel Anderson.
Hi everyone.
So we're here at UKIO and yet again, it's like our annual get-together, isn't it? I'm joined by Mr. and Mrs. Diagnostics. So would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Dr. Simcock. I'm the lead clinical academic radiographer at Great Ormond Street Hospital, and I'm funded by the NIH.
And I'm Claire Simcock, and I'm the lead radiographer at Great Ormond Street Hospital.
The dynamic duo of the diagnostic world.
A little weekend away, basically,
Yeah,
for the kids.
absolutely.
An Atlantic weekend away in Liverpool. You know.
Have you treated it to a nice meal, nice bottle of wine?
Yeah, we did go for some drinks, didn't we? Don't look at me like that. On the first night without kids, we went out for drinks and sun terraces and things.
Yeah, okay.
There we
Ah.
go. I mean, I might not have paid, but we did go for drinks.
Who earns more?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, there
Yes, yes, I love it. I love it. So, Great Ormond Street, a really famous place to work. What does it mean to work at somewhere like that?
I think, the hospital has a huge reputation, and trying to kind of make your radiology department live up to that reputation is a huge challenge. But the patients that come through the doors of that hospital are absolutely amazing, and they make the difference.
Yeah.
And actually, when you see what they go through, it gives you absolute perspective on not just your working day, but your entire life. And suddenly you find a real purpose in what you're doing. And we're only bringing just a part of the patient pathway.
Yeah.
But actually, you walk away at the end of the day feeling that you've made a difference. And all of that feedback comes back from the children. They're amazing at actually what they go through.
Do you have to be a radiographer of the year to work at Gosh?
Apparently not, no.
I
You
can't
never know
believe
in the
you've got
future.
money.
You never know in the future. We can always try and live up to your expectations now. We try.
What I mean is, it's a very prestigious place. Can anyone apply there? Students go for electives, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely anybody. What we say to kind of students, if you've got an interest in paediatrics, is contact us the minute you've got that interest in paediatrics.
Right.
Because come and spend some time in the department on an elective placement. We don't have an A&E, we don't have GP referrals.
Right.
So actually it feels a very different place, and actually most other children's hospitals will have A&E and GP referrals within it, but we don't. So everything is quaternary and specialist referrals that come in.
Yeah.
So for those that are then interested in paediatrics, I always advise that post-qualification they get 6 months experience of adapting technique, because every single examination you undertake will not be a textbook radiograph, and you need to pull on a little bit of experience so that you can make that examination successful for the family and for yourself, that actually you do a good job. So by having that 6 months of experience gives you the confidence to then think, I can apply this in a paediatric setting. And so 6 months post-qualification, we've got band 5, 6 link grade jobs, which gives you a transition through to a band 6, so competency assessment objectives that can be met in that individual's own time. So actually, if you want to stay as a band 5 for the next 5 years, that's absolutely fine. But actually, if you want to kind of meet those objectives within 6 months, because you're really ambitious and you want to move through, you can equally do that.
And there's some really innovative roles to move into as well, isn't there? We've got reporting radiographers, we've got clinical academics, we've got people leading research, we've got consultant radiographers, advanced practice. There's loads of things there that can. So although it's really super specialised in paediatrics, there's still those examinations and those roles that you can go on to fill. And I think that's really nice. I get a buzz out working there, feeling that it's innovative. We're leading the way in certain areas, and radiographers are taking those leads. And I think that's really special. So I come away from it just with a bit of a buzz actually after working there. I really enjoyed it. It's a really nice atmosphere.
We had Emma Rose on the podcast earlier, so if anyone's listening and hasn't listened to that episode, go back and have a look. But Emma was saying that actually the strength of the team is one of the best things about working at Great Ormond Street, and the fact that when things go wrong, and you might have a child that unfortunately dies, the team is what pulls together, and it's the hardest times that actually you see that dynamic of why it's such a great place to work. Is that kind of your experience?
Yeah, it is, and I think there are people, such inspirational people like Emma, who work at Great Ormond Street, who make that ability actually. And certainly, I couldn't have got my work done without the team that I've had pushing me and having that can-do attitude, from lead radiographer with Claire to Professor Owen Arthurs, who's my PhD supervisor, to all these different people, not just within radiology, but also outside that into the department. So there is that team effort that happens amongst all of the sort of what could be silos areas. It can be productive as that. So certainly in IR, I know the nurses, the radiographers, the radiologists work really closely together. And Emma is part of that team and has really thrived on it. So
Claire, how do you create a culture? Because, just from our experience, we talk to a lot of radiographers working in various trusts, and actually some trusts do have a poor culture, and that's really difficult to change. But how do you kind of help manage that from your perspective?
That's a difficult question, isn't it? And I think what I think I've got in my experience, having now been there for 23 years, is that I understand every role in the radiology department because I've occupied most of those roles. I've rotated through every modality apart from ultrasound. I didn't train in ultrasound, but I've rotated through every modality. So I really understand what it is to be at that stage of your career. I still remember my first 2 weeks at Great Ormond Street thinking, what on earth have I done? I can't actually undertake a simple examination because nothing is simple anymore. And actually, I say to all our new starters, I still remember how that feels, and I know your confidence has taken a real knock. But give it a couple of weeks, and you'll soon start to see the real value that your experience is bringing to all the patients that you see every day, and you'll see an interesting case every single patient that comes through the door. And to follow that through, I mean, I came to Great Ormond Street to do a couple of years of paediatrics. That was my intention. And actually, I've just moved through every modality, up from a band 6 radiographer to a band 7, to a deputy superintendent, to a superintendent, to now professional lead. And I think, so there's relevance in what I'm saying because I understand. And actually, for me, it's looking at people's attributes and guiding them where they want to be. What is your career trajectory? Where do you want to be? And for me, my role simply is just to facilitate that. Ian clearly demonstrated aptitude for research. Okay, well, let's create opportunities. Let's write business cases. Why do we need to let people go off somewhere else to fulfil their career aspirations? Let's create those opportunities within our department. And yes, we're niche and we're specialist, but it doesn't mean that we can't still meet all the pillars of practice in our department. So my job will be done once actually everyone is happy at their final point in their careers.
You're never going to retire.
No, they'll be wheeling me in.
and I'm obviously completely biased, but she does a really good job of that by enabling people to do those tailored opportunities. So there's always challenges when you are faced with a consultant radiographer post or a clinical academic post or a board radiographer or whatever. There's challenges to get through, but she fights tooth and nail for it. And I think people know that, and so they know that it's not a straightforward thing. Because that really means that then they get the dedication, because they get, actually, she's fighting my corner, I'm going to make this a success, and that's why it works. I think so. It has to come from the top, doesn't it? And it does. But also it inspires those people then to drive through. And I think that's the team culture, is that you see other people fighting your cause, and it means that you can go on and do those things as well. So I think that's really powerful.
I suppose with fighting your cause, research, getting involved, what are the funding opportunities? You talked about NIHR, obviously.
Yeah, definitely, and we have to go out there and apply for these grants. There are grants with the NIHR that are open for radiographers, and unfortunately, they're also open for other allied health professionals and nurses. If we don't fight for those opportunities, if we don't pursue that valuable funding, then it will go to other professions. The dietetics, the physios, the place specialists, whatever, they will get it, and we won't. So at the moment, less than 3% of the applications the NIHR gets are from our professionals.
Shocking.
Rubbish.
Shocking.
Rubbish. So we've got to seize that opportunity. It's not easy, but there are enough of us now who have got some experience that then can help others step onto that plate. And I definitely see that as my role, to not only get my own funding, but to nurture that talent that's coming up behind. Because you can only get that, and I benefited from that. Somebody saying, you can apply for this. Found it really hard, but they then nursed me through that experience, and then I feel really passionately that we've got to then bring on the next generation, and it's really satisfying when you see people. I've had loads of conversations this week at UKIO with different people, and hopefully it inspires some of them to at least click on the website, open up the application form and go, oof, I need a stiff drink, but I'm going to have a go at that. And the same with the co-RIPS grants. Those are there for the society red offers for people to apply for. If we don't apply for them, then the numbers will fall, and maybe they'll go, do you know what, maybe we don't need to fund 5 every year, maybe we don't need to fund 2 every year, or so. So the more that apply, we demonstrate that there is that ability and that wish out there for people to get that funding, then there may be up the money, or it ups the ability of people to run their own research. So I think that's really important, to go out, look at those opportunities that are there, and apply for that money, because someone's going to get it. Why shouldn't it be you, really?
How do you deal with failure?
Definitely a lot of cups of tea, and maybe something stronger, and a good moan to Claire or whoever. But I think it's about picking yourself up, actually, and listening to those comments that come back. I help assess with other people on the Society Red Offers Research Group, the co-RIPS grants. We always make sure that we feedback why something might not have got funded and how it can be improved. And we have definitely had people who have been not successful in the first application, who've taken that on board, applied again, and then been successful in taking that on. And it's always better. The applications or the research is always better. So it's really hard. And I put a paper in the other day, and it got absolutely savaged, and you close the email and take a deep breath and you go, this isn't a great day or whatever. But I do know that when I reopen it with a bit of, having sat back again, look at it and go, do you know what, there's a couple of harsh comments there, but I can fix those. I've got my co-authors or my co-applicants for the grants, and I'll rewrite that bit again. Do you know what, it'll be better, and I'm just going to take it on the chin that it wasn't the perfect thing at first, but it will be better. So it's about having stickability and about having that team that you can have the moment to, and then back up going, how do I change that one? How should I improve it? And that's what I've got. I've got a fantastic team behind me that make me look good because they can help me all the time. It's not a one-man show. It only happens when it's team effort.
How do you switch to a reviewer? Because I think just having reviewed myself, it's a very difficult skill to get right, because you want to critically appraise what you're reading, you want to be able to kind of give constructive feedback, but it is your opinion.
Yes, definitely. And certainly when I'm reviewing grants, I always make sure, and I have my little hat on that says, right, I've got to be critical, but I also have my hat on that I know from my own personal experience how much heart and soul people put into these applications. And it's so time consuming, and you put your all into it, and then if you're not successful or people are critical of your work, it does hurt, it does take a bit. So I always make sure that I do bring attention to the things where I think it can be improved. I try and offer some advice that maybe if it included X or Y or Z, this could be better, or you maybe need to think about better dissemination or different dissemination or whatever it is. But I also always make sure that I praise what I think is good about it. There's no application for a grant is all awful. There will be bits, nuggets of gems in there that are real of an idea that can then go on to a million. And it's just about changing the bits that aren't quite right yet and making those better. So I always try and start, finish, and whatever with something that actually, do you know what, that was really good. I love the idea, or there should be praise for looking into this area because this is a really important part of this. You've got to have that praise in there, I think. So it's really difficult. And I often write it and then reread it and reread my reviews because I just know how difficult it can be just getting the stick, not the carrot, really. I think it's really important.
The first paper I put in, I got brutal feedback. But one of the reviewers, one was really nice, but good criticism. The other one was just brutal, but she put her name. I printed it out and I've got it in my room. And I remember every time I'm having a bad day, I'm like, that was the worst time. But then I've put it in again and it did get approved. So, but at least now I know as a reviewer, I don't want to be that.
Never put your name.
Once it gets published, I will be sending it to her. She's in Australia as a mammographer. I'm going to find out where she works.
Oh God.
No, but I get
Printed and bound.
You need to be. like you need to be constructive, but
Yes.
I was a new researcher, my first ever thing. Like it wasn't nice to read. It took me a month to just open that email again. But so
It's really hard.
you got to break that cycle for me. I just
My first ever first author paper had to go through 9 journals before it got accepted.
Wow.
And I guarantee you, by the 6th and 7th, I remember turning to my supervisor and going, "Really? Is this worthwhile?" And it was for various reasons. First 2 or 3, it wasn't good enough. Next few, it was good enough, but it wasn't in the right journal. It was too specialised. They couldn't find it. Should it be in radiology? Should it be in cardiac? Blah, blah. And it kept bouncing between the 2, and eventually it found a home. And people are quoting it now, so it's just about perseverance. But you do need that team to be behind you to go, "It's all right. Let's have a cup of tea. Let's take these comments one at a time. All right, that might be a bit harsh. Let's just answer professionally, and we'll move on to the next bit," and so on and so forth. I think it's not easy, is it? Taking that criticism, because we all want to do the best. Nobody puts in a bad grant application on purpose. You only put in the best that you can do, and so you try your hardest. So it's tough, definitely tough.
Claire, what challenges and opportunities, we're always thinking about the positives, do you think there are in your role now and within radiology?
Okay, so the challenges is clear that we're in a staffing workforce crisis.
what was that, Claire? Sorry.
You might need to go to G session. So I think clearly the challenge is we're in the midst of a workforce crisis, and that's not going away. So I think we have to think differently about how we recruit, and that means fundamentally challenging some of perhaps the experience and the work that you've always worked with, and how you might do things differently. So we've recently created a post that's shared between the adult sector and the paediatric sector. It's not been done anywhere else as far as I know. But the applicants received it really well, and we're like, wow, why has this not been done before? And I think for us in paediatrics, we just assume if you want to work in children, you'll only want to work in children. But I think there is a whole cohort of radiographers who enjoy adult practice, they enjoy A&E, they enjoy geriatric care, and we don't offer any of that at Great Ormond Street. Why leave that just to do paediatrics? And actually in the hospital that we've tailored up with, they've got paediatrics in their hospital too. There's not many hospitals that actually don't have any children coming through it. They might not be offering specialist services, but children are still coming through the door every day. And I think there's reciprocal learning on both parts, and it's just the start of that journey for us, but hopefully that will grow, and suddenly we'll have a partnership kind of employment. I mean, the challenges are, there's bureaucracy at every level. When you're trying to do something that's never been done before, how are we going to make that work? And what's the contract going to look like? And whose HR department is dealing with that? And actually, does that need an honorary contract? And who's paying who? You've just got to work your way through all of that and be tenacious, really, and a bit stubborn about it. Well, this is what we're doing. So we're not going to let this stop us. So just forge that path through and see how we go. But I think it's just about coming to events like this and stopping and thinking and listening and just giving yourself the headspace. I haven't checked any work emails for a couple of days, and it's given me the headspace to think actually how we might do things differently going forwards. And actually the challenge is making sure that when I'm back in the department, I don't instantly fall back into I need to clear that inbox now, and I've got 20 meetings because I haven't been. And actually making sure you facilitate some of the change that you've seen into new practice. And that for me is what makes the job really interesting. I don't want to do things the same way that has been done for the last 20 years. And maybe the fact that I've been there for 20 years drives me even further to do that. But that's what is interesting.
So Ian obviously has research in terms of CPD. I would imagine being in that area, you're constantly learning and developing your skills. Claire, as a manager, how do you develop your leadership and managerial skills? Is it through the experience, or do you do extra study or extra courses specifically to try and?
So I've done leadership and development courses. And I still keep my hand in very much in MRI, so I lecture on a number of postgraduate programmes about paediatric MRI. I will often pop up at events like this and speak. I'm having a year off this year.
Watch this space.
It's really important to become relevant, I think, and not just well, when I used to practice, I used to do this. And it's really important that you are a visible leader in the department, and during the pandemic, I was taking x-rays. And for some members of the team, they didn't even realise I was a radiographer because I was spending so much time in meetings, not in a uniform, trying to fight for radiographers' PPE and everything that everybody else was fighting for in hospitals at the same time. But actually, I kind of made me really reflect that, wow, they don't even realise that I am a radiographer. Actually, that I hugely challenged that since making sure I'm out there in the clinical spaces and making sure that people know that fundamentally I am their professional lead and I'm their lead.
Yeah. I do wonder whether, this first question about culture, I wonder whether that also helps develop the culture because you're there working clinically, being visible. I definitely have worked in places before where I never knew where the manager was. Like, we could go months without necessarily seeing the manager. We'd get the emails and, in staff meetings there'd be updates from that staff manager. But I do think visibility is so important. And just talking to staff about how are they feeling appreciated.
Absolutely. I think, having those opportunities, like this is really a great opportunity. We've got 6 members of the team from Great Ormond Street at this event from our Band 6 rotational
formidable tribe, aren't they?
They are.
Like 3 of you in here.
Yeah.
There's more to come. There's more.
Yeah, we'll send the others through.
Yeah.
But that itself builds up a team. We had a team dinner last night. Like, we would know that 6 of us wouldn't ordinarily go out socialising on a Monday night.
Yeah.
Actually, suddenly we are a team because we brought the team here.
Yeah.
And we've got a stand in the exhibition. We've had people come through asking us all kinds of questions. We've had 6 of us, and between all 6 of us, we've been able to answer every single question that people have got, asking about research, asking about advanced practice, asking about paediatric practice, and asking about recruitment and how you can work at Watch. And I think it's built in teams within teams within teams, and hopefully, people at this event this week will go back into the department and go, she's all right, Claire, isn't she?
You hope right
We'll
now.
see.
We'll see.
We'll come back next year and I'll tell you.
I'm sure you will. We'll have you in here again.
So my last question.
Are you going to G?
Oh, she's very determined, isn't
Yes,
she?
she is.
Very determined. You each get to tell each other live on a podcast that will go down in history. Your kids might access. What's the one thing that really annoys you at home?
We got time.
only one, Ian.
Gosh.
Feels like a counselling session,
Doesn't it? Yeah, doesn't it? I need to
Late
relax.
session.
Like whatever. Jeez, I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
You do.
Have you got one?
Yeah.
Go on.
Crumbs. Ian can't see crumbs.
Right.
No, that's true. Well, they don't exist really.
And is it falling off the plate or just eating without the plate?
It's just, making some sandwiches
Right.
and all the crumbs are there and they've all dropped on the floor but he hasn't seen those either. Or he might sweep up with a kind of tertiary effort at sweeping up and half of them
the
are still
effort's
there.
isn't it?
It's half a job, isn't it? So I think maybe
Do my best.
some improvements to eyesight for the crumb
Right,
retrieval.
okay.
And I mean, if that's the only thing I can find, then I think you're doing all right.
Okay, so now we know the gloves are off. So I am very good at hanging washing.
Right.
It's my super skill. If the PhD hadn't worked out, this could have been the PhD
Okay.
instead. Claire can't hang a washing properly. Not to try. I mean, it's a real skill.
Yeah.
And I try to educate, in my role. But
Maybe it's something I just can't ever learn properly in and you'll have to do it for the rest of our married life.
Yeah, very good answer.
So we'll see you next year. We'll see if you've worked on this. This will be a therapy session in a year's time.
I feel much better now. I feel
I'll
I've got
be
it off my
photo
chest.
evidence of
Yeah.
crumbs or lack
Absolutely.
of.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.